How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Baking World Tour, where we try and bake something from every country around the world. And in today's episode we're going to Brazil, making a bread called broa. It's made with cornmeal, leavened with yeast and flavoured with fennel seeds, and it almost resembles a really soft cookie. It's unlike any cornbread you've ever tried. Soft, fluffy, sweet, flavourful. This will be the perfect accompaniment to your morning coffee, and you could easily eat it plain, or you can top it with something. So let's get to it and see what we need to make this. Some fine cornmeal, strong white bread flour, salt, yeast, some crushed fennel seeds. They will add an amazing flavour to this bread. We'll need some soft butter, an egg, a little bit of water for hydrating the yeast. We'll need sugar to go in the dough and some sugar to sprinkle on top before baking. And lastly, we'll need more water, which we're going to boil and soak the cornmeal with. Not much equipment needed for this one. A tray with some non-stick paper, bowl, scales, a dough scraper and temperature probe. We'll start by soaking the cornmeal. I'm going to add the fennel seeds to it as well. Soaking the seeds will help with releasing their flavour even more. And soaking the cornmeal will make it nice and soft. Normally when I make cornbread, you can kind of feel the grains in it. This will be super nice and supple. So we'll simply mix the cornmeal with the fennel seeds, add the boiling water, mix everything through properly so all the cornmeal is hydrated, and then cover it up and leave it to cool down completely to room temperature. I actually made this a day ahead of time. This simple step will make a big difference with the final texture and flavour of this bread. And once everything's cooled down, we can start making our dough. I'm using room temperature ingredients. My kitchen is around 23 degrees Celsius. So in a large bowl, combine the remaining little bit of water and the yeast and let it hydrate for a couple of minutes. Give it a quick stir and then continue by adding the salt, the sugar and the egg. This is a no-knead dough, so everything will be done in a bowl. And that's why it's important to mix things in stages. So once you added the egg, the salt and the sugar, give it all a good mix. And only then follow that with the cornmeal and the butter. The cornmeal may look a bit tough right now, but it's gonna get softer as we mix it. And once again, after adding the butter, mix everything well, before adding the final ingredient, which is the white flour. Now, I'm sure every granny in Brazil has her own version of this, and this is my version. I try to make it as simple as I can, but at the same time achieving awesome texture. So once you mixed everything, add the white flour and mix again. Once the flour has been absorbed, continue mixing vigorously for around a minute. It's as if you're working the dough in a mixer. Once you're finished, scrape down the sides and take the temperature, just to see what we're working with. Around 23 to 25 degrees Celsius, just about right. This is quite a forgiving dough. Now we'll leave it to ferment for around 30 minutes and then we'll give it a fold. Right now the dough is very loose. As you can see, it tears easily, it's not stretchy at all. So instead of kneading, we need to do something to build up some structure in it. And that's where the folds come in. So wet your hand, wet your scraper, go around in a circle and fold the dough over just like that. And you want to do around 40 folds. It'll take you about a minute. Once you're finished, scrape everything together, cover it up, we'll leave it for another half an hour, and then we'll give it another set of folds. I can already feel the dough becoming stretchier. It's still not there, that's why we're going to fold it again with the scraper. Remember, wet your hand and wet your scraper with some water to make it easier. Do your 40 folds, cover it up, and we'll leave it for another half an hour. The final fold we can do by hand, because the dough is cohesive enough now. Wet your hand with water, and fold the dough over itself, going around in a circle. This time you don't have to do 40 folds. Do it until the dough starts resisting. You can also pick the dough up and fold it underneath itself. The best part about this recipe is that we don't have to take the dough out of the bowl at any time. The only time we'll remove it from the bowl is when we do the final shaping. You've done your fold, cover it up, leave it for another 30 minutes. So it's been 2 hours now. The dough is puffed up nicely, it's nice and cohesive, it's stretchy. And we can already do the final shaping. Have everything ready to hand. Get your tray with some non-stick paper, get your scales, get a little bowl of water. The dough is still super sticky, so we use some water to prevent it from sticking. Wet your scales, wet your hands, get a tablespoon, also dip that in water, and then scoop it up and weigh it out in 50-gram pieces, which is 1.75 ounces. Remember to wet the spoon between scoops, otherwise the dough is going to stick. Once you got 50 grams, you can pick it up and shape it into a ball. Don't worry about making it perfect, it will get rounded off anyway as it's proofing and baking. You should end up with around 11 pieces in total. and leave some good space between them because they will spread out a bit. And remember to wet your hands and wet your spoon and wet your scales every time you feel it sticking. That's the only way to avoid a big mess. I've seen various versions of this recipe on the internet, and some of them have like a crackly crust, kinda looks like rye bread on top. And while that may be pretty, the thing with that is that the dough has to be a lower hydration, so you'd be sacrificing texture for looks. Well, you can try both, see what you like. I think the softness of these is unmatched. Now cover them lightly with some cling film, do not press it down, do not stretch it over, and we'll leave them for around an hour and a half. And during the final hour of fermentation, preheat your oven, 220 degrees Celsius, fan off. You want them to almost double in size, and as you can see they're puffing up beautifully. Now you got to be real gentle from here on in, they're super airy and super fragile. Peel the cling film off slowly to avoid tearing anything, it should come off quite easily. Now there's just one thing to do before we go to bake them. Sprinkle them generously with sugar. This will give them a beautiful crispy golden brown crust. I used all the sugar that I wrote down in the recipe, so be quite generous with this. Half of it ends up on the tray anyway. Now let's pop these in the oven. They'll take around 13 to 15 minutes, depending on your oven. And you can turn the tray around halfway through the bake to give them a nice even crust. But these look pretty good to me. And that's how you make super soft broa. I hope I haven't strayed too much from the authentic version, but I'm sure someone will let me know down in comments. I do encourage you to try this because it's super simple, it's super tasty. So what do you think of this little sweet bread that resembles a cookie? Let me know down in comments, and if you have any questions or suggestions, also let me know. And do check out some more Baking World Tour episodes. We've almost done all the countries that start with A and B. And of course don't forget to subscribe for more. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.